Right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to all of you. Such a privilege to have you on the call, and thank you very much for attending. I mean, it's one of those things, if you were not here, it wouldn't be possible to do this webinar. So I'm so grateful for having you. You also provided me an opportunity to really dig a bit deeper into this concept of culture and although I'm working with it for a long time, I was reflecting on how much of this is true for other relationships in my life, other spaces where I interact with people, and the kind of culture that we create when we are in the presence or when we are in relationships with people. So I want you also to do this, so to say, application in your own mind. When you listen to what I'm going to share with you, please keep it in mind that it's not only applicable for companies or for the workplace, it's actually quite true of our relationships in families and in marriages, friendships, and all those kind of applications that you can apply this to. So please keep it in mind when you are listening to what I have to share with you. Look, it's webinars is hard stuff. It's not easy because when we I do my work, I often get a lot of energy and confirmation and all those kind of things from the people that I can see in front of me and how they respond. Now, here I'm sitting not having anybody in front of me, and I only see myself. And but so I would like you to please interact on chat. That will really help me to my emotional brain will relax a bit more, and I will be a bit more in the moment and not no, because I know who I'm talking to. So please interact. I would like you to please also find a piece of paper and maybe a pen somewhere for yourself and to keep it in front of you because I'm going to ask you a couple of questions which I want you to write down and answer for yourself just to also facilitate the learning process for you. My thinking is that I'm going to cover about 30 minutes of sharing a lot from my side of my experience and knowledge that I've gained over years on this topic of culture, organizational culture. And but I want you to participate and contribute and facilitate your own learning. And I want you to write down a few things in front of you. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you, what comes up for you when you hear the word company culture or organizational culture? I often find and hear people using the term quite loosely in the sense that, they kind of will say, we have a culture and the people must fit into our culture. And I wonder when I hear that comment made by somebody, I often wonder, so what exactly are you talking about when you say we have a culture? Because there's a big chance that that you are actually talking about something that you value and that is quite important for you in the company. But if I ask the person next to you, what do they value and what is quite important for them, it might be two different things. And that's also why it's such an important one to get into conversations about what kind of culture are we talking about. The, Listen, it is true that there's always a culture where people are in each other's space. There's a culture developing over time. In companies, there's always a culture. There's no company without a culture. The big question, of course, is this culture working for you and for the success of the company, or is it working against you, or are there subgroups, groups in the company who doesn't really subscribe to your culture that you would like to see as a dominating one, or the one that governs, how people behave and interact and decide decisions made, there's always a chance that you can sit with a certain understanding of what the culture is, but not all people is engaged in that culture. So, which is, by the way, a very important first step, is to get into conversations with the people in your company about the kind of culture that you really feel creates value, that really makes a difference for the success in the company. And also making sure that everybody knows what we're talking about when we're talking about that people needs to fit into the culture of the company. Let me just quickly share my slides with you here. So as you can see with this, I want to first talk about what is culture. What is a company culture? What is an organizational culture? What is a team culture? What is a family culture? Marriage culture? Wherever you want to apply this to. You can see right at the bottom of culture is values, and that has a lot to do with this question. So what do we value in this company? And when we talk about value, so what is a value? A value is something that people values, something that they consider to be quite important for them, um, something that they believe in, that if everybody can subscribe to this value, this place will be a better place for people to work at, or it will be a better place for customers to do business with, or it will be a place where we will really deliver the kind of performance that is required from us. So having a concise definition of the kind of values that you would like to see being held by many people, and of course, the more collective you are in terms of the kind of values that you've subscribed to, the better chance you have that people will start executing on these values. So the next thing is that the values should be translated into behaviors. People must live the values. Otherwise, it just stays a concept, or something that's been written on the wall, and you often find it that people are writing these things on the walls of the companies, and it's important that you have this visibility of the kind of values that you would like to support or demonstrate in your company. But if it's not translated into behaviors, collective behaviors by enough people in the company, it will just stay as words been written on the walls, and not many other people will believe you that this is really what you are standing for in terms of the values that you are subscribing to. Second thing is the importance of systems. I just want to move quickly to the next slide here. So the systems uh, are different ways in which you are regulating your company, and mechanisms which you are using to execute on the objectives that you have, and execute consistently, execute in such a way that there's a standardized way in which we do things here. We just don't do things. One person subscribe to a very informal system and not consistency in his systems, and the other person is, doing things by the book. So systems are often the kind of things that you are putting in place to manage and to get people, all the people that's part of your company, to follow the ways in which you want to accomplish and your goals, and also the ways in which you want to behave in the company. Then there's another factor which is also quite important, in it's the simple symbols that you have developed over time in the company. Now, symbols can be a bit elusive in terms of what exactly is symbols now, but it's often been demonstrated in the habits that you've developed, or the rituals that you have developed, your logos that you are and putting on your website. Um, by the way, your website, the way in which your website has been created and what you are writing on your website is also a symbol which people are looking at and say, oh, I like this. I like the symbols that these people are standing for and that they promote, and therefore I want to do business with them. So when we go back to my slide, so culture has been driven collectively by as many people as possible, especially the significant people in the company, in the ways in which people behave towards the customer, towards each other, towards the subordinates, towards the systems that you have in the company. Um, it's the way in which you have systemized your company so you can deliver things consistently and in a standardized way. And it's the kind of symbols that you are promoting, that you believe in, that is actually a demonstration of what is important to you or not. Symbols can be things, of course, like also the kind of office that you have and where your offices are. Um, is it symbols also like parking spaces, often is also symbols of who you are and what you really values in your company. So the thing about behavior, if I just go back quickly to behavior, is that especially when the significant group of people, and we're talking about the leadership structures of your company, the behaviors that they are expressing when they are under pressure, or when they are in meetings and when they have to deal with difficult situations, when they experience crises, or when they have to make decisions, or when they strategize about the company going forward, those behaviors um, produce often the culture that will follow. Now, when we talk about behaviors, let's go quickly through this list. For instance, if a person express humility in terms of a behavior and the ability to admit that he made mistakes, what such a leader actually creates around himself is an understanding that we are just human beings. We do make mistakes. There's always an opportunity for learning, and let's be open for this moment, and let's hear what is it there that we can learn from this. A behavior of seeking out and listening to the views of the front lines, the people that's in contact with your customers, often creates a culture of customer focus. Um, Asking for and following up on commitments. If people committed themselves to something and you as a leader follow up on it, ask people, where are we? What progress have you made? This is creating a culture of accountability. Saying no when you should say no to something, or taking no for an answer, accepting that people sometimes will say no to you when you give instructions or when you ask for something to be done, creates a culture of discipline, ability to control risk, because people often have good reasons why they have to say no to something. Accepting justifications or excuses for non-performance if you are just walking over it. and no consequences follow because when people are not performing. It's actually communicating a culture of we avoid certain difficult conversations in this place. We don't take it on, we don't talk about it, and it's an avoidance kind of culture. And often, of course, it has a huge impact on accountability. This whole thing of favoring one person above the others and not really having reasons other than I just like this one person more than the other one. Um, if leaders make themselves guilty of those kind of subtle, maybe sometimes not so subtle communication of what who they favor and who they not, it often leads to a politicking kind of a culture in the organization. And also, of course, I often comes across this one where a person, there's a member in the team, he is willing to say, "I'm not agreeing with you. I'm pushing back on what you are saying we should do. I'm not supporting group thinking here. I have my own opinion about this." When you are not allowing this kind of behaviors happening in your teams, you might find that very quickly people become quiet and they will cover up. They will not say what the truth is. And you are often sitting in a blind spot as a result of it. So you can see how powerful, ladies and gentlemen, you can see how powerful behavior is in developing the kind of culture that you want for your company. Quickly on again on systems, the whole thing of where's the time spent, where's the money spent, what get priority in terms of times when we are under pressure, who are favored. We have a great exercise, which we often do in companies, which is called the village exercise, and we will do a metaphorical kind of exercise and say, let's pretend we are anthropologists here in the company and let's go and ask a couple of questions that an anthropologist will ask in this village. And one of the questions that we will ask, so where's the money spent in this village? And what happens when there's pressure in this village? Or who overrules whom in this village? These are all symbols of the kind of culture that you are subscribing to. Themes. I'm working quite often in companies where there's a very strong, especially when the World Cup is on, very strong rugby themes, happening. Um, and in a way, it's good. It's great spirit, and there's nothing wrong with it. I understand why this is happening, but we have to understand that that theme is often not all the cultures in your company is actually as excited about what's happening in rugby than yourself maybe. So are you celebrating the great moments in other sports, maybe for instance, or are you having rituals around uh, things which is also including other cultures or genders or generations in your company? Very important questions to ask. What kind of symbols are you? And by the way, there's fantastic symbols. I was coming across last week a place where there was, the whole company gets together and celebrate Passover. I thought this is fantastic. This is a symbol of this company, but again, just be aware of what kind of rituals and symbols we are supporting. Just a quick one on systems. So when we talk about systems, we will ask questions about because systems are actually culture levers. They support the kind of culture that you want to sort of be supported. For instance, if you want to create a culture of accountability and there's no performance contracting happening or performance review processes happening in your company. It's very hard to really to establish a company or to establish a culture of accountability if nobody follows up on your performance and give you feedback on the kind of performance that they are observing you are giving out to the company. Um, we often comes across in companies where the planning practices are not happening. No strategic planning happening. As a result of it, no proper operational planning is happening. And the whole, what's happening in management meetings, what exactly is an agenda on the management meeting is quite an important question to ask, because what has been listed on an agenda in your management meeting is often what will get managed, and what people will see as this is a place where I will have to report back on progress made on what we planned last time. So if your management meeting or your team meeting is just without structure, no outcomes, no decisions made, no actions following from it, imagine what will happen to the culture of performance or to a culture of accountability. Same with measurements. What you don't measure, you can't manage. If there's no measurements in place, there's no data that will tell you how you performed over time. So very important systems that needs to be put in place in order for you to deliver a certain culture, or shall I say, a preferred culture that you want to put in place in your company. I am so aware of the time that's running so quickly at the moment. I just want to quickly page this system. So why does culture matter? Why is this such an important conversation to have in your company? Because culture eats strategy for breakfast. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that your strategy is not your competitive edge. Your opposition has probably exactly the same strategy as you. They have maybe exactly the same uh, marketing strategy as you. Their sales strategy might be exactly the same as yours. Strategy is not the competitive edge. What is the competitive edge is your your execution. Are you executing on your strategy? And that leads us to the next logical step. So, who should execute on the strategy? The people, of course. And are they aware of the strategy to execute on? If not, the chances that they will execute on the strategic objectives that you have for your company is quite low. If you don't follow up on those strategic objectives and have practices in your company to say, how are we, what progress are we making? The chances of executing is becoming quite low. Culture is that collective um, drive or behaviors, following the systems, following the symbols, following the behaviors, which can become over time a social control system. It's like we don't have to, because this is the way, we don't have to control from the top, because this is how a social control system is. This is what we do here. This is our way. It becomes the way of the company. The moment when you have a way of the company which delivers on performance, or who ensures execution, who ensures progress, the moment when you have that kind of a control system, that way, you have a fantastic culture. This is what culture is all about, is to get more in. They talk about the critical mass of people. You need to generate the interest, the contributions, and the support of the critical mass of the company to deliver on the, or to develop the kind of culture that will support your strategic objectives. And that's when you can get that right. That's when our customers are impressed with you each time when they interact with everybody from your company, not only the leaders, because this is a culture. Everybody subscribes to it. This is how we deal with customers. Um, why why do we go into culture changes? First of all, we need to speed. We need speed in our companies. We need to be responsive. The market changes quite quickly. Um, we need to be also quick on decision making. We can't take forever to make decisions. We need to implement. And if we don't have a agile, quick response time kind of culture in your company, you will fail on those kind of areas. And I can move down that list. Accountability. I mean, we all know how important it is to have a culture of accountability. Rigor. Um, Embrace those people that doesn't always agree with you. That points out to you where the risks are. That challenge your thinking. They create rigor in your company. They create honesty and motivated decision making, and people start getting into the habit of we all think and say and contribute towards the outcome. It's not only the one person talking. Um, Collaboration, such an important one. We come across so often in companies where there's silos. Um, the people are not talking to one another, so they do exactly the same that's been done in the other department, and they um, don't talk to one of the departments that actually have done it already, and there's duplication of work being happening. Silos is often an indication of a lack of collaborative kind of culture that you've developed over time. Single people moving into single teams, moving into single departments, and they're not working together and supporting one another in the kind of goals that they're chasing. Yeah, just the last one, attractiveness. I was yesterday asked by a company to talk to tell me why and how can we become more of a attractive um, work of employer for younger generations. Um, Work on your culture. This is the first answer that I will give to that kind of question. Work on your culture because it's your culture that will make your company an attractive workplace, and people will talk about it. You can develop such a great employment brand. People are not only following money, by the way, because they value not only money, they do value money, but they value also happy um, teamwork, happy work environments where teamwork is happening, where there's friendships, there's a relaxed kind of atmosphere, kind of climate. This is the kind of things that people that attract people to companies. So I want you to quickly write down on that piece of paper, listening to all this, um, what do you see at the moment as the most important culture shift that needs to happen in your company that you would like to you know promote in your company? Just write down for me one or two things that you feel that you would really like to see happening in your company. I want to go to this slide. So research done have indicated that quite a number of the kind of cultures that companies wants to promote and establish in their companies comes down to these five dimensions or culture focus areas. The one is achievement. We want to achieve, we want to be successful. We want to be seen by our customers that they are important and they will come and do business with us. Um, we want to experience a one team kind of a culture. People are collaborating. We want to, since we are in such a fast changing kind of market at the moment and economy at the moment. We want to see that there's innovation happening. People think for themselves. They come up with new ideas. They have new solutions for all the problems. They are on the front end of being entrepreneurial, looking for business opportunities. And then the last one, people first. People, most valuable asset, we often hear people say in companies. Now, if you are your list that you have just done, if they are on that list or somewhere along those lists, and you will see in these descriptions, quite a number of the things maybe that you have written down there as quite important in your company. But if you go back again to your list that you've done just now, and you say, if I can do one culture, if I can establish one very important um, culture in my company at the moment, or if I can get my people to really to shift us towards that kind of a culture in our company, what will that be? Um, and it can also differ, of course, all depending on the time that you are in at the moment. But maybe there's a word there on that list. Look at the descriptions, look at the dimensions that you feel this is really very, very important at the moment. Um, then just jot it down there on your piece of paper because I want to quickly take you into the last bit, and that's only going to be 3 minutes of more talk from my side. Um, I want to get to this very important one, and that is that the role of leaders in this whole process. What is the role of leaders? If you are in any capacity of leadership there in the company, what you've just written down there in terms of the culture, um, you will have to understand that you are one of the very important people that needs to go out back to your company, generate more support for this kind of a culture that you want to see being established, and start working with other leaders because you will not be able to do it by yourself. Never. Um, Work with other leaders, create a core group of leaders if you are a team leader, for instance. Get your core group around you. Start getting into the conversation about what culture do we want to establish in this team. Because, by the way, team culture is often one of the great drivers of company culture. Um, the first thing that you have to do is change your own mindset, by the way, not other people's mindsets, but your own mindset. The change in mindsets of leaders leads to the change in behavior of leaders. Those people that you want to bring along, that you want to take with you on this culture-driven journey, needs to change mindsets so that they can start changing their behaviors. Now, you will ask me, so how? And that unfortunately is a long answer to give to that question. Very good, very important question that you are asking, but it's a long answer. Change of mindsets leads to change of behaviors in leaders, which leads to different ways in which we make decisions by leaders in line with our beliefs and values. If we have a certain beliefs and values, every time when we make a decision, we have to ask the question, so how is that impacting? And how is this supporting the kind of values and beliefs and culture that we want to establish? It leads to, if we start making our decisions according to those beliefs and values, it will lead to the meaning that you will see in certain symbols and systems, which will support the values in your company, which will lead to different kinds of messages that you will send out to your organization. And if the collective leadership team can get into sending out those messages, every time when a person bumps into a leader, they will get exactly the same message. because this is the culture that we want to see happening in our company, which leads to the reinforcement of the culture and the values that you would like to establish, which leads to new performance outcomes. Just remember again, strategy is not your competitive advantage. Your competitive advantage come from execution, which is, by the way, collective behaviors, which is, by the way, collective systems. And I want to end here. This is a beautiful one, which is quite challenging to me also because I remind myself, I have to remind myself often of this one because I don't always get it right as a leader in my company. What you do speak so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a leader, what you do speak so loudly that people sometimes cannot hear what you're saying. It's not the saying, it's the doing. It's not the doing, it's the being of you as a leader that will drive the doing, that will make you believable, trustworthy by your people, a person to follow as a leader. Thank you. I want to open time for questions and we'll provide a couple of answers, maybe also to your questions if I can. I hope you didn't come with very difficult ones. So, thank you. I see people that joined, and so good to see you on the call. Um, so, I've got this one from a colleague of mine. Why does culture matter? And she's writing down culture matters because it drives behavior at scale, even when no one is watching it. Oh, beautiful. I like it. You might not always been seen, but what you've done and what you've decided will have an impact on other people, and they will see it. They will experience it. They will not. They will experience it because that will impact their lives. It's influences what people do by default, how they make decisions, how they solve problems, and how they engage with one another and with clients. Of course, this is so true. Any questions that you have, please post it for us here. Want to see if there's more. How do we change a toxic environment? Yes, very important. Just remember, um, as a leader, you have an emotional atmosphere that you carry around you. People see it in your eyes, they see it in your voice, your tone of voice, they see it in the way that you respond to their questions, how patient you are. Um, so how do you change toxic environments? Have to be very aware of how you show up emotionally, the emotional field that you are creating. Toxic environments is not attractive at all. It pushes people away. They don't want to be there. They sometimes are there because they have to be there in their bodies, but not in their minds and not in their feelings. And therefore, they will do a shabby job for you because they don't feel like doing a better job for you. Um, so how do you change it? Start with yourself. Become aware of how you show up and the emotional field that you create when you are in the company of your team. And of course, reinforce, acknowledge those people around you who contribute towards fun, who contribute towards uplifting kind of emotions, who, and never tolerate gossiping. Never. This is the worst thing that happens in too many workplaces, ladies and gentlemen. Um, for you to tolerate it one day, not one day. You cannot tolerate it for one day. It's too long. Never gossiping, never tolerate gossiping. A very important one also is that we sometimes manage the results of people, but not their behaviors. If you want to create a culture of belonging, a culture of engagement, a culture of people being happy in the workplace and there's no toxicity or those kind of things happening, it's important for you to manage behaviors also. You have to give feedback to a person that comes into the workplace day after day and being miserable and not really being fun to be around. Never in the public, always in private. Um, I like the words, don't call it out, call it in. A beautiful one that I came across recently, which means that when you call out, it means that you announce it, you challenge the person in front of the others, which is, of course, shaming the person, which is never a good thing for you as a leader. Um, and secondly, then of course, you are when you do it in private, this is the moment when you really can create a safe environment, psychological safe environment to take on a behavior that you should do that you don't want to see continuing in the workplace. Just remember, psychological safety. Oh, this is such an important topic, which maybe we can take on at a later stage also. But the moment when you address the behaviors of people, it's more sensitive than addressing their performance results. So behaviors being addressed in a psychological safe environment is such a critical one. How long does it take to change culture? Thank you, Willem, for that one. So it's not a overnight process. It's definitely not a switch on process. Um, it's a process that we often, when we listen to textbooks, they will say it takes about 3 years. It all depends on, do you have the significant people on the same page that you would like to take with you on this culture change process? If you have the significant people, and by the way, people influence you, it's not always necessarily the people that's with you on the team. There can be people outside the team who's also influencing your culture quite drastically or significantly. So when you talk about changing of culture in a company, I think you must consider who are all the different stakeholders that's influencing the kind of the culture that we are experiencing at the moment that we want to change, and what kind of change management process do I need to work on to get them to support the direction that I want to take the culture on. Sometimes those people have a huge influence on the resistance that you have, that you experience, and that prevents you from making progress. I also would like to then back to the point to the question, how long? So I never, I can't see it happening in a shorter time frame than a 2 years process. But culture culture don't change automatically. It is something that you have to work deliberately on. It must be a conscious process um, that you have defined, that you have a plan for, that you have some kind of measurement on, which you can measure from time to time. What kind of progress are we making uh, in this, in terms of changing the culture? I was recently working in a company where we introduced a very simple measurement process, and just becoming aware of where we are and how badly we are at the moment in terms of the culture that people are experiencing in the company is already a very important first step toward changing the culture. I I hope I answered that one for you, Willem. And of course, there's more to this one. Manantu is sharing with us some more thoughts here. Um, So she's just sharing that, the importance of espouse value. Um, No, it's what behaviors are we intentionally, unintentionally rewarding. Oh, this is a very important point. Just remember, it's like the fight between the wolf and the bear in your company, the one that want to support your culture drive and the one that's resisting it. There's always a fight happening between the good and the good stuff in terms of culture and the bad cultures that is already there in your company that you have to get rid of. Now, unfortunately, sometimes promote a certain culture, but we the reward still the culture that we want to get away from. Unintentionally, sometimes we don't even are aware of it. For instance, we want to promote a team culture, but our performance management process has been set up in such a way that we're only promoting individual performance. So just remember those kind of things. I'm going to move on. We are out of time here. How long does it take to change a culture? Jack, I believe I already um, shared this one. Christoph, good to have you on the call. To change culture, we need a team for sure. Do they come from leadership or from the whole organization? It starts with the leadership. That's where it all starts. You build a culture change process from the top down, but there can be times when the whole organization is screaming it out so loud that you cannot continue with this culture because this culture doesn't attract people. We lose important people in the organization. We can't, and the moment when the whole organization is screaming out to you that something is wrong here, you have to take a look at often cultures change because of the pain being experienced by by the company. Pain is not always bad. Pain sometimes is it's sometimes unfortunately in successful times when we develop bad cultures, which doesn't look after us when we get into the bad stages of our economical cycles. So it shows when we go into the bad or the difficult economical cycles, the kind of culture that we thought we had that we does actually don't have. Can two cultures be present in a company? For sure, Angelique. Um, you have subgroups, subsystems in companies, and you have sometimes a situation um, where some teams develop their own culture and they don't give anything for the rest of the company in terms of the culture that the company wants to promote. Again, it's important to become aware of it so you can address it, especially if those cultures in your organization is actually working against the culture that you want to develop. Thank you. Management style sometimes gets forced into mid-management. Sorry, I know you have to go, and I appreciate that you were on the call. I'm just going to carry on with the questions while you are still here, but I know we are out of time now, and I really appreciate that you made the time to be here. It's so great having you. Management styles sometimes get forced into mid-management and supervisors with no one agrees with, which affects the whole department for sure. Um, uh, those management styles can happen. Now, I want to answer this one, from two sides or from two perspectives here. You often find that when there's a culture change happening in a company, and it's been driven from a new leader that joined the company or a new management culture that you want to see being developed, you often find that people lower down resist it because it makes them now all of a sudden there's more controls maybe, there's more systems that they have to follow, or they have to now abide by certain policies which they didn't which we never were asked to do. and it creates inconvenience and all those kind of things. So you have a resistance coming sometimes from the bottom when a management style change is happening in the company. So, um, but if that management style is for the betterment or for the improvement or for the advantage of the company, of course, um, one would like to support that management style. So be aware of why you are resisting a management style. Is it just because it changed your life now and now it's difficult for you to follow the policies? Or is it because you are actually seeing a management style happening, which is really creating a lot of unhappiness amongst the people lower down? And especially if there's a management style which is autocratic, there's no feedback loops happening in the company. And by the way, if you are in an HR role or in a role where you can implement those kind of processes, please have feedback processes in your company where you can be in touch, where you can give the CEO information about what's happening lower down, which he or she doesn't have direct access to. Because it's that what sometimes happens. Um, there's a guy, Dalio, Ray Dalio, which is saying that the worst things that's happening to CEOs or top management in companies is that it's a huge blind spot and egos. So sometimes it's very hard to give feedback to management because they don't tolerate feedback or they don't appreciate it. So if there's a management style which is just enforcing, autocratic, and they just force things down on people, and there's no feedback loop, you can find that those kind of places over time develops a very negative kind of atmosphere, and engagement will go down. Employee engagement will go down. So how do you ensure you do not manage with these values without not meeting the expectations of management placed on you? All depends on what kind of values you want to instill in your team. Um, and by the way, values can be competing at times. Um, if, for instance, if you have a strong relational value in your team, so we must be happy people working together nicely, and there must be sound, solid relationships happening amongst us, which is a beautiful value. And of course, who argues against that? But it can compete at times against a value of accountability because it means that you sometimes have to confront a behavior or a performance result, and it can interfere with the relationship with that person. It can create a bit of a, uneasiness in that relationship. So you as a manager sometimes need to balance these kind of values. There must be times when you are um, be strict and firm on non-performance or behaviors that cannot be tolerated, which might work a bit against your relational values that you're supporting. And then there are times when you have to be kind and understanding and empathetic towards your people. It's not a either or, it's a both. And we have to hold sometimes values because they compete. There's conflicting things happening sometimes between values, but we have to hold both. So, unfortunately, I don't have a very specific answer to you because I don't know exactly what kind of values you're talking about here. Okay, I see time is up. I don't know if there's more. I see some people left already. Thank you, Christoph, you left, and Rupert also, thank you for being here. Um, I see just Rupert vraag vir jy dalk reeds beantwoord het, maar is hierdie webinar opname beskikbaar om weer later na te luister? Absoluut ja, hy is opgeneem. Ek hoop ek het nou nie iets beloof wat nie daar is nie, maar verseker dit ek het ander aanvrae of navrae gekry ook te u voor en ek hoop hy is opgeneem. Van my kant af baie dankie vir almal van julle. Dit was so lekker gewees om met julle dit te deel. Dit is nou baie een rigting, is nie heeltemal my voorkeur nie, maar baie dankie dat julle hier was. Ek hoop om julle iewers vorentoe raak te loop. Goed gaan.